It's 17 to 8. Well, the New South Wales Labor Opposition says the Liberal and Nationals are guilty of rank hypocrisy because of their push to decide the future of Liddell Power Station. Look, it is true the power station was built and then owned by the New South Wales Government for decades with a lovely little income stream. Now that's gone, because the New South Wales Liberals and Nationals privatised it in 2014, giving it to its current owner, AGL. Well, practically giving it away. Why? Got to get on to the Labor leader in the Legislative Council, the Shadow Minister for Energy, Adam Searle, joins us. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Grant. How are you?
Very good. It's interesting, too. At the time, well, they were very keen, and I wondered why at the time, too, that they were very keen and wanted to get the job done quickly. At the time, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission actually tried to block the transaction because they said it was likely to lead to higher electricity prices. Well, how right were they?
Oh, well, yes, and less competition in the electricity market. Nevertheless, the New South Wales Government, urged on by the federal coalition government, proceeded to sell Liddell as part of the Macquarie Generation sale. But Macquarie Generation had two components, Bayswater Power Station and Liddell. And Liddell was literally given away to AGL by the New South Wales Government for nothing, had no value, according to AGL when they bought it.
How can they say that a power station has literally no value? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, because it was in a very poor state of repair. It needed a fair bit of investment, and there was something like a rehabilitation liability for the site of something like $500 million. Over the two sites, it's around about $1 billion worth of rehabilitation when the power station comes to the end of its life. So that's a lot of liability. So the New South Wales Government, had a fire sale, sold all the electricity generators to the private sector, urged on by the federal government, and now Malcolm Turnbull and the federal government doesn't like what the current owner wants to do and is trying to engage in some kind of bullying tactics like you'd see in modern-day Russia.
Yeah.
So it's a very strange behaviour by a federal Conservative government to, on the one hand, say...
And in all honesty, look, Tony Abbott, as Prime Minister, supported the privatisation of Liddell, and apparently he recommended it to the world's most powerful economic officials at the G20 finance ministers meeting. So everyone was pretty keen to get rid of it, weren't they?
Well, yes, and Joe Hockey, when he was the federal treasurer, said it was an outstanding case of asset recycling, and he urged it on other state governments and, as you said, internationally. So, everyone in the Conservative parties said this was a good thing. The Labor opposition opposed privatisation of the electricity assets here in New South Wales.
Well, I talked about that too. We sort of say, okay, here's something with an income stream. We get rid of the income stream. What happens then?
Well, there is that problem. It also means, at this point in time, very importantly, that governments lose direct control over or ability to influence the evolution of the electricity market because you're no longer a participant.
Yeah.
But having said that, like all pieces of machinery, Liddell is coming to the end of its life. The owner, AGL, has looked at the cost of what it would take to keep it going in its current form versus doing other things, and they've formed the view that it would actually lead to even more expensive electricity if you could keep it going in its current form beyond 2022. And so they've come up with...
Mind you, having said that, there is no government financial support for coal-fired power stations, yet the same owners are getting government grants for renewables, so that's not a level playing field, is it?
Well, the point is this, that we know that renewable energy is the cheapest form of new build electricity.
Wait a minute, it's the cheapest form, renewables?
It is.
Do you really believe that? Why is it that it's so expensive? Why is it that South Australia pay the most expensive electricity prices in the world? How can you say it's cheaper?
Well, your electricity bill is made up of different parts, Grant.
Yeah, very, very cleverly, by the way.
Yeah, sure, but half of it is the cost of the network, the transmission and distribution system, and the other half is things like the actual cost of generation. And at the moment, we've had, in the past, cheap electricity because all the capital has already been invested in these coal-fired power stations. Now, as they come to the end of their life, we have to find out what is the cheapest form of new build electricity. Now, we know, with or without subsidies, building a new coal-fired power station would lead to more expensive electricity because of the massive capital cost of building even the most efficient new coal-fired power station.
There is an argument, though, that whilst and I see to that the price would go up because of the cost of building them, but it's still far cheaper than renewables, isn't it, at this stage?
No, it's not. Renewables actually produces the cheapest form of new build electricity. The one thing renewables haven't been able to do at the moment is the ability to deal with the intermittency, which is where storage comes in, where we are beginning to see batteries come together, but we also know that pumped hydro has a place in our future. But really, going back to the future of Liddell, the issue is this. The Liberals and Nationals in this state gave it away and lost the ability to influence the future of that site. The federal government's now trying to bully the current owner into doing what it wants. Now, we have to ask ourselves, do we really want the government of Australia telling businesses what they can and can't do with their own property?
Yeah, well, in this case, they were bullying the owner of the one that they encouraged to buy it in the first place.
Exactly. So that sets up a whole lot of sovereign risk issues. Now, by all means, the federal government, everyone's entitled to a view about what our energy future should be.
Well, why not both? Why not coal-fired power stations as well as renewables? Look, in my humble opinion, we haven't got renewables right anywhere on the planet just yet. We may do in the future. And it's been alluded to even in the ad for AGL at the moment, that we can't rely on just renewables at this stage. How far into the future do we go before we realise that perhaps renewables might be the answer?
Well, look, as I said, I think the missing ingredient is the storage and the ability to have power that's flexible and dispatchable, and that's why I think pumped hydro has a role to play into the future.
Yeah.
But let's just look at this point. And it doesn't matter whether you're pro-renewables or pro-coal, or like me, you think that we should have a mix of sources of energy. The fact is this. As our ageing coal-fired power stations come to the end of their life, we have to invest in new build generation. Now, we need to have new build that's going to provide power that's cheaper, and that is also reliable and sustainable into the future in terms of pollution.
Yeah, that's fair enough too. Look, but what about clean coal? People say, well, coal is pollution, and a great, wonderful Australian invention is clean coal. What about the future of coal and the export of coal in this country?
Well, coal is a major export and will continue to be for the foreseeable future.
But doesn't that seem strange to you that here we have one of the greatest exports this country will ever have, and that is coal, exporting to other countries that are building coal-fired power stations in the hundreds, if you look at China and India, just as a start, and we're not even using it ourselves?
Well, just pause there. We are using it. I mean, at the moment, coal-fired power still produces 75% of our...
But this is the want of, particularly the Greens, not so much the Labor Party, to get rid of coal altogether in this country.
No, let's be very clear about this, Grant. Coal provides 75% of our power today.
Yeah.
But we do know that as these coal-fired power stations reach the end of their life, we have to find the most economic and reliable and sustainable forms of new electricity.
Correct.
Now, that's a matter for the companies that own the assets and, private investors. Government has got out of the business for now of building and owning and operating generators. They've left it to the market. My side of politics didn't agree with that, but that's what has happened. And it's a question of what is the cheapest forms of new investment. Now, the owner of Liddell has decided that it will actually be cheaper to do something else than to try and keep this ageing power station going in its current form beyond 2022.
Yeah.
Now, they're a publicly listed company. They have obligations to their shareholders as well as to their consumers. They're not going to act, irrationally. They're not going to act contrary to the interests of their shareholders. If they thought they could continue to make a buck out of operating Liddell, they would. But they have formed the view that they can't, and they're going to invest in a variety of things, some renewables, some gas, as well as upgrading the Bayswater coal-fired power station and doing some other things to replace the energy that Liddell now produces. Now, that's their business decision, that's their decision, because the government of New South Wales gave this asset away. It's just hypocrisy for the federal Liberals and Nationals to be saying, well, we don't like what AGL is doing. Why don't we like it? Because they're trying to transition to cleaner energy generation.
Yeah, well, let's hope we get the mix right, and we're not proven down the track that perhaps we could have gone in another direction. But always good to talk to you. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Grant.
All the best, Adam Searle. Yeah, he's the Labor leader in the Legislative Council and Shadow Minister for Energy.